Dr. Ifepo Sofola. I am a facial plastic and reconstructive surgeon, board certified in facial plastic surgery as well as otolaryngology, head and neck surgery. I practice in the Woodlands, Texas, which is a suburb of Houston, Texas. I must say that the impact of the COVID-19 has been devastating from the standpoint of the loss of life. Any loss of life is very dear and devastating to that individual and the immediate family and friends. And so the number of patients that we see that have lost their lives right now it just tells about how impactful this disease and this pandemic has been, on the country and the world as a whole. As far as Houston is concerned, I'm sure we are all aware that Houston is now one of the centers, so to speak, of the coronavirus. This is one of the hotspots of the coronavirus pandemic. And it's basically ravaged so many families, so many people. And speaking about my practice itself, it's really had a great impact on my practice because, as I had mentioned earlier, I'm an otolaryngologist, head and neck surgeon, and facial plastic surgeon. So I operate on the face and the nose especially. And as you may know, the coronavirus essentially resides in the sinuses and the nose. And so my specialty is the one that is at the greatest risk for the providers to contract the virus and be negatively impacted as such. And so the face of my practice has changed significantly. What I have to do when I operate, which I still do operate and I still see patients, is I have to be very meticulous as far as wearing PPEs, as far as what I do, to scope patients, to evaluate them, and actually to operate on them. I go to the far extent of developing what we call a PAPR, which is basically somewhat similar to a spacesuit, where I have my own micro environment that I operate in, a little quote unquote bubble that has special filters. In fact, I had to basically purchase a device that was modified by a digital printer system, which created a gasket that would filter the air that comes to me and also the air that goes into the general environment. So we're basically using the science, to the best of our ability to protect ourselves so that we can confidently deliver care to our patients. Going again about the impact, I can tell you that the impact on the healthcare workers, as well as the frontline workers, and the people who cannot take time off, so to speak, the personal sacrifice, I would say, has been tremendous. And so I consider the healthcare workers and all these other people as heroes. They're stepping up to the plate. They're doing what they're supposed to do to protect their citizens. And myself, being a former naval officer, a retired commander in the United States Navy, I know what service is all about. And so I see so many people serving their community. And I think that is very heroic and makes me truly proud. It's impacted my work to a degree. And not from this standpoint that we're not able to deliver care, but because the general populace may not be comfortable. But when they understand the extent to which you go through to protect them and protect yourself, and they come. So I still have a good number of patients that I see. I'm still performing a lot of elective but necessary surgeries, like some nasal reconstruction and occasional facelift here and there. nasal surgery, sinus surgery, palatal surgery, things that are I would say medically necessary, though, they can wait in the sense of being elective. But that also has been somewhat limited in some ways by the administration, because we do not want to create a situation whereby we're taking the beds or medical supplies from would-be COVID patients to take care of people who could actually wait for their surgery. So what we are doing is that we are really very cognizant of these facts, and we try our best to be considerate of these factors. But we are also available for people who want to continue to live their lives, because in such a pandemic, if you can create some state of normalcy, it helps people psychologically. If you think about the lockdown as if you are in the war front. When you're in a war, people hunker down, they go into their little bunker, and then they come out to forage for food, and they go back into their bunker, and then they go to the groceries, they show up once in a while, wave to their neighbors, oh, you're still alive, and they go back into their bunker. That can only, you can imagine that can have a negative impact. But if you come out and wisely interact with people in the environment and show some level of normalcy, then it helps people psychologically. I tell my staff that I treat every single person as if they are radioactive. If you've ever worked in a lab where you dealt with radioactive reagents, you are very meticulous, and if you touch the radioactive reagent and contaminate somewhere else, the Geiger counter will tell you you've contaminated. I have had some of my colleagues or co-workers test positive, and so what we've done is that we've encountered or we've implemented the various measures to isolate the individuals and also treat appropriately, with what we have available, or actually let the experts who treat such patients do that. And I would say all of them have recovered, and so that's some good news. But I've also known of people who have been afflicted with the same disease and have not made it, and people have actually passed away. I know quite a few who have had this. So this is not a hoax. This is real. It's a real disease. It should not be feared, but it should be respected. Okay. Don't treat it as if it doesn't exist. Don't lie to yourself. It does exist, but with the right attitude, I think we would overcome this. PPE works if you use it. If you don't use it, then it's not going to work. Okay, and if PPE is available and you don't use it, it is like somebody who is educated and doesn't read. It makes him illiterate, effectively. Okay, so if you don't use the PPE, then it's not going to be effective. And so by following science, proven science, and listening to the experts, I think is critical, for properly implementing the use of the PPEs and other measures that could hopefully stem the spread of this virus. We should have access to PPEs, and I think the purchase, the manufacture, or what have you, should give us what we need, to be able to actually practice what we have to practice. So, adding on to that, we have to consider that the preventive measures that are implemented in the general populace would help us reduce the need for other PPEs in the hospital if we're not getting sick patients. Okay, so we've got to kind of think about this thing, in a general, more comprehensive term. Yeah. So right now, I feel that we are chasing our tail. Why? Because people are not getting a consistent message on what to do to stem this disease. We understand that there are individual rights. That's what makes us human beings. It is indeed an important thing for us to understand that we have individual rights. However, as the saying goes, a parasite cannot afford to kill the host, because in the process of killing the host, he himself dies. So if you look at yourself and say, oh, you have the right to do what you want, and regardless of the impact on society, you could destroy society, and in that process destroy yourself. If you destroy the economy by not using your mask and using your PPEs and acting responsibly, at the end of the day, the roof will fall on your head too, and it will be negatively impacting that. So people should use their wisdom. We know that, for instance, that pedestrians have the right of way. But are you going to use that notion that you have the right of way to walk in front of a running semi-truck because you have the right of way? You're not going to walk in front of a semi-truck because it doesn't make any sense. You get run over by the truck, yes, you might sue and win, but you'll be crippled for the rest of your life. So use some wisdom. Consider your neighbor. Work with one another. And at the end of the day, we can conquer this thing together. Well, I would give them advice that there's hope. Where is hope? Why is there hope? Well, there's a precedent. None of us alive today, I would say, was around during the Spanish flu of 1918. If we were around, we were very young, okay? But what I would say is that Spanish flu of 1918 killed 50 million people worldwide. And not too long after that problem occurred, things came back to normal, meaning the social distancing, wearing masks and things like that. We stopped. We found a solution. Science and human behavior helped to stem the spread of that virus that killed 50 million people. I believe that today we have more knowledge as far as virology is concerned, as far as science is concerned. So because of that, I believe that there's hope. And I also believe that the human behavior can always be modified or encouraged to basically work on the science that we already know, the medicine that we already know, the methods that were used to control the Spanish flu of 1918. So now I say that we should all come together and work together and use common sense and think of our neighbor. Be your neighbor's keeper. If you think about your neighbor, then you will do the right things. If you think that you do not want to infect your neighbor, you will wear a mask. You will wipe your hands. You will do all these things. Think about your neighbor. Be your neighbor's keeper. Do the right thing. And then let the scientists work. Let the decision makers make wise decisions as far as governmental issues are concerned. But it all comes down to us as individuals in a community who should address this issue and together come out of it. So I believe there's hope. I hope that people will now come to their senses and use the wisdom as well as this general idea that we are a neighbor's keeper to go through this whole process and come out on the other side in a positive way. If I had unlimited resources, I would really want to find out who in the population is susceptible to this disease, in the sense that who in the population is likely to have serious consequences to the disease. Why is it that some 20-year-olds have serious reactions and some 20-year-olds don't? Why is it that some elders without pre-existing conditions or like diabetes or other comorbidities, why is it that some do badly and some actually make it? Because I've seen both. So what in the system is actually causing this? Is it diet? Is it the general environment? Is it something genetic? You know, so if I had unlimited funds, I would want to look at that. And I would also want to understand the pathophysiology of the disease. Where exactly is this virus affecting that is causing problems and is killing people? We want to know that. We also want to know how to best manage these patients. You know, if we can do research on how to best manage them, and also do some research on the psychosocial effects of this pandemic. This hasn't happened in 100 years. So what are the psychosocial effects of this pandemic on the people? And then lastly, of course, we'll talk about vaccines. I would like to do some research on how to come up with the best vaccine. But I have to caution you that the vaccine is not the answer to it all. The vaccines can help, but they're not foolproof. So what are other practices that we could implement? Is it diet? Is it taking supplements? Is it, you know, there's various measures, both allopathic and holistic methods to get us to the next level so that we can manage this disease properly and reduce the morbidity and mortality of the disease. That's what I would do. I think that we should learn from the people, other countries who are doing this, going through this process successfully. There are other countries who are ahead of us on this. And I believe that as they open, I know that there are going to be some new outbreaks, so to speak. And we'll have to learn how they are mitigating these factors, and also add from our own knowledge to, mitigate the risk of the opening. One way or the other, we are going to open. It's going to happen. It's going to happen. So how do we do it? Let us learn from one another. And let us use wisdom to reduce risk and be vigilant. So I'm hoping that those who are individualistic will start to now think outside the box and think about their neighbors and think that sometimes your liberties may be restricted for the better good of the community. Doesn't mean that your liberties are restricted forever, but you got to use wisdom and how you proceed. So yes, I do have some concerns, but I do have hope, that people will wisen up and understand that this is for the general good of our planet.